Welcome to Fear Files, where darkness lurks behind every tale. Join us as we delve into the chilling depths of the unknown, where ancient curses, vengeful spirits, and haunted artifacts await. In tonight's episode, we bring you 3 spine-tingling stories from the shadows of history. Prepare yourself for a journey into the realm of nightmares, where each story brings a new twist of fear and suspense. Welcome to Fear Files, where horror finds its home.
Thomas Finch adjusted his cap and glanced at the ancient clock in the corner of the Metropolitan Museum of Art's security office. It was nearing midnight, and as the night watchman, he was accustomed to the eerie silence that settled over the museum after hours. Tonight, however, there was a tension in the air that he couldn't shake. The Egyptian exhibit always gave him chills. The dim lighting cast long shadows across the hieroglyph-covered walls, and the imposing statues of pharaohs seemed to watch his every move. Tonight, though, there was something different, almost as if the artifacts themselves were alive with a quiet, pulsing energy. As Thomas made his rounds through the exhibit halls, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Faint whispers seemed to echo through the corridors just at the edge of his hearing. He paused, his hand resting on the cold stone of a sarcophagus. "Must be my imagination," he muttered to himself, trying to ignore the goosebumps that prickled his arms. But as he turned to continue his patrol, the whispers grew louder. They were coming from the direction of the mummy's sarcophagus, a centuries-old relic from the tomb of an ancient pharaoh. Heart-pounding, Thomas approached cautiously. The whispers were now distinct, urgent, as if the spirits of the past were trying to communicate something. He hesitated, unsure if he dared to uncover the secrets hidden within. With a trembling hand, Thomas reached out and touched the lid of the sarcophagus. The stone felt strangely warm beneath his fingers, and as he pushed it open, a gust of stale air rushed out, carrying with it the scent of ancient dust and decay. And then he saw them. The eyes. 2 glowing orbs of otherworldly light set in the withered face of the mummy. The spirit of Akhenaten, the forgotten pharaoh, had awakened. "You have desecrated my tomb," a voice echoed in Thomas's mind, ancient and powerful. "You will pay for your trespasses." Thomas stumbled back, horror coursing through his veins. He had heard tales of curses and ancient spirits, but he had never believed them, until now. In the days that followed, Thomas found himself haunted by visions of Akhenaten's spectral form. The museum seemed to warp around him, shadows lengthening into sinister shapes whenever he passed through the Egyptian exhibit. Desperate for answers, Thomas delved into the museum's archives, scouring old texts and records for any mention of the pharaoh Akhenaten. What he discovered chilled him to the bone. Akhenaten had been a heretic pharaoh who had sought to overturn the old gods in favor of a single deity, the sun god Aten. His reign had been marked by upheaval and dissent, and upon his death, his name had been erased from history, his monuments destroyed, and his tomb sealed with powerful curses to prevent his return. But someone, at some point in history, had disturbed the pharaoh's final resting place. Artifacts had been looted, relics stolen, and now Akhenaten's spirit sought vengeance upon those responsible. Thomas knew he had to stop him. Armed with ancient knowledge and a growing sense of dread, he confronted the curator, Dr. Evelyn Hartley, a brilliant archaeologist who had overseen the museum's Egyptian collection for decades. "Evelyn, we have to do something," Thomas pleaded, his voice hoarse with fear. "Akhenaten is real, and he's angry. We can't let him harm anyone else." Dr. Hartley regarded him with a mix of concern and skepticism. "Thomas, I understand your concern, but we must approach this with caution. Akhenaten's spirit is powerful, and ancient curses are not to be trifled with." Together, they devised a plan, a risky, daring plan to appease the restless spirit and put an end to the curse once and for all. They would need to venture into the heart of the Egyptian exhibit, to the very tomb where Akhenaten lay in restless slumber. As midnight approached, Thomas and Dr. Hartley stood before the open sarcophagus, the air thick with anticipation and dread. The museum was eerily quiet, as if holding its breath, waiting to see what would unfold. With trembling hands, Thomas placed the stolen artifacts, recovered from private collectors and black market dealers, around the sarcophagus. Each piece carried a fragment of Akhenaten's legacy, a piece of the puzzle that had been scattered across the globe. "Please," Thomas whispered, his voice barely audible over the pounding of his heart. "Let this be enough." For a moment, nothing happened. The silence stretched on, broken only by the faint hum of the exhibit's air conditioning. And then, slowly, the glow in Akhenaten's eyes began to fade. The whispers grew quieter until they were nothing more than a distant echo. The ancient spirit seemed to waver, its form dissipating like smoke in the wind. "It's working," Dr. Hartley breathed, relief flooding her features. But just as they dared to hope, a sudden gust of wind swept through the exhibit, knocking over statues and shattering glass cases. Akhenaten's spirit roared in fury, a vortex of dark energy swirling around the sarcophagus. "No!" Thomas shouted, struggling to hold his ground against the supernatural onslaught. With one last desperate effort, Thomas hurled himself forward, grabbing the lid of the sarcophagus and slamming it shut. The stone lid crashed down, sealing Akhenaten's spirit inside once more. The museum fell silent once more, the air heavy with exhaustion and lingering magic. Thomas sank to his knees, heart pounding, as Dr. Hartley rushed to his side. "You did it," she murmured, her voice filled with awe and relief. "You saved us all." But as Thomas looked around at the shattered artifacts and the chaos that surrounded them, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning, that the shadows of Akhenaten would linger in the museum halls, a reminder of the price of greed and the power of ancient curses. In the weeks that followed, the Metropolitan Museum of Art remained closed for repairs. Thomas Finch returned to his duties as night watchman, haunted by memories of his encounter with Akhenaten's spirit. Dr. Hartley continued her research, determined to uncover the truth behind the pharaoh's curse and prevent such a catastrophe from ever happening again. And somewhere, in the depths of the Egyptian exhibit, the spirit of Akhenaten watched and waited, a silent guardian over his long-lost treasures, a testament to the enduring power of the past. The Museum of Puppetry stood nestled among the quiet streets of a small town, its Victorian-era facade a stark contrast to the modern buildings that surrounded it. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of old wood and dust, illuminated by the soft glow of antique lamps that cast long shadows across the exhibits. Thomas Hargrove had been the night watchman at the museum for over a decade, a solitary figure tasked with safeguarding the delicate marionettes and puppetry relics that adorned its halls. He was a reserved man with a meticulous attention to detail honed from years of quiet vigilance. On a chilly autumn night, as Thomas made his rounds through the Victorian exhibit, something caught his eye. The marionettes, once frozen in their carefully arranged poses, had shifted. At first, he dismissed it as a trick of the light or a prank by mischievous visitors, but each subsequent night brought more unsettling changes. The puppets seemed to move of their own accord, their delicate limbs twirling and swaying in eerie synchrony. Thomas watched in growing horror as they enacted scenes of betrayal, murder, and madness, scenes from their own forgotten history. One puppet, a harlequin with painted tears and a twisted smile, danced with a ghostly elegance that sent shivers down Thomas's spine. Another, a somber judge with a stern visage, presided over a mock trial where condemned puppets pleaded for mercy. Night after night, the performances grew darker and more elaborate. Thomas tried to ignore the whispers that echoed through the empty halls, the sensation of unseen eyes watching his every move. But deep down, he knew something malevolent had awoken within the museum's ancient walls. Driven by fear and a gnawing curiosity, Thomas delved into the museum's archives. There, he uncovered the tragic tale of Ambrose Huxley, a puppeteer who had once graced the stages of Europe with his mesmerizing performances. Huxley's genius had been unmatched, his puppets imbued with a lifelike quality that captivated audiences far and wide. But fame had a price. Jealous rivals conspired against him, spreading malicious rumors that tarnished Huxley's reputation and left him a broken man. Embittered and betrayed, Huxley disappeared one fateful night, leaving behind his beloved marionettes and a legacy steeped in sorrow. It was said that Huxley's spirit had lingered, seeking vengeance on those who had wronged him. And now, centuries later, his restless soul had found a vessel through which to exact its revenge, the very puppets he had once cherished. With the help of Dr. Elizabeth Grant, a skeptical but open-minded historian specializing in folklore and supernatural phenomena, Thomas pieced together Huxley's tragic story. Together, they confronted the truth. Huxley's spirit had returned to control the puppets, using them as instruments of his wrath against those he deemed responsible for his downfall. As Thomas and Dr. Grant delved deeper into Huxley's past, they uncovered a ritual, a chance to break the curse that bound the puppeteer's spirit to the marionettes. But the ritual came with a cost, a sacrifice that neither of them was prepared to make. On a stormy night, with thunder echoing through the museum's halls, Thomas and Dr. Grant performed the ritual. The air crackled with energy as they chanted ancient incantations, their voices trembling with equal parts fear and determination. The puppets stirred, their movements becoming erratic as Huxley's spirit fought against the bonds that held him. Shadows danced across the walls, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes. And then, with a final burst of light and a deafening silence, it was over. The puppets fell still, their strings dangling limply from their wooden limbs. Huxley's spirit had been vanquished, his thirst for vengeance finally laid to rest. In the aftermath, the Museum of Puppetry reopened its doors to the public, its exhibits restored to their former serenity. Thomas Hargrove continued his duties as night watchman, forever changed by the ordeal he had faced. As for Dr. Grant, she returned to her academic pursuits, haunted by the knowledge that there were forces beyond comprehension lurking in the shadows of history. And somewhere, in the quiet corners of the Victorian exhibit, the puppets remained, a silent testament to the power of betrayal and the enduring legacy of Ambrose Huxley, the puppeteer whose spirit had once controlled their every move. The Art Museum of Ravenwood stood as a grand testament to centuries of artistic mastery, its halls adorned with priceless paintings and sculptures that whispered tales of beauty and tragedy. Among its collections, the Haunted Gallery was a place of both fascination and dread, a repository of artworks rumored to be cursed by the spirits of their subjects. Daniel Pierce had been the night watchman at Ravenwood for 5 years, his stoic demeanor hiding a deep-seated unease with the supernatural stories that surrounded the museum. He was a man of routine, methodically patrolling the echoing corridors as the world outside slept. One fateful night, Daniel's routine was shattered when he entered the Haunted Gallery to find a new addition, a portrait that seemed to emanate a chilling presence. The painting depicted a figure from the 17th century, their eyes dark pools of malice, their smirk hinting at cruel intentions. The plaque beneath identified the subject as Lord Nathaniel Blackwood, a notorious nobleman known for his tyranny and ruthless pursuit of power. As Daniel patrolled the museum, he couldn't shake the feeling that the eyes of Lord Blackwood's portrait followed his every move. It was as if the painting itself was alive, its malevolent gaze penetrating his soul. Strange occurrences began to plague Daniel's nights. Shadows moved where there should have been none. Whispers of long-dead victims echoed through the marble halls. Each night, the atmosphere grew thicker with dread, and Daniel found himself drawn inexorably to the haunted gallery, compelled by a force he couldn't comprehend. The whispers spoke of a curse that bound Lord Blackwood's spirit to the painting, his thirst for power and cruelty as strong in death as it had been in life. Daniel realized with mounting horror that the portrait was a prison, and Lord Blackwood sought to escape, to find a living vessel through which he could resume his reign of terror. Driven by fear and a growing sense of urgency, Daniel delved into Ravenwood's archives. There he uncovered the grim history of Lord Nathaniel Blackwood, a nobleman whose thirst for power had led him to commit unspeakable atrocities against his own people. Betrayals, executions, and dark rituals marked his path to dominance until his mysterious disappearance and rumored demise. But the truth was darker than Daniel could have imagined. Lord Blackwood's malevolence had transcended death, his spirit bound to the portrait through a cursed pact with dark forces beyond mortal understanding. With the help of Dr. Amelia Hartley, a historian specializing in occult studies, Daniel pieced together the ritual needed to break the curse. Together, they ventured into the haunted gallery on a moonless night, the air thick with anticipation and the tang of ancient magic. They stood before the portrait of Lord Blackwood, its eyes seeming to blaze with hatred and hunger. Dr. Hartley chanted ancient incantations, her voice trembling but resolute. Daniel held the ceremonial dagger, its blade glinting in the dim light, ready to sever the ties that bound the malevolent spirit. But Lord Blackwood fought back with a fury born of centuries of confinement. Shadows twisted and writhed around them, the very air crackling with malevolent energy. The stakes were high. Their lives and the safety of everyone at Ravenwood depended on their success. With a final surge of willpower, Daniel plunged the dagger into the heart of the portrait, severing the cursed bonds that held Lord Blackwood's spirit captive. The painting seemed to tremble, its colors fading to an eerie gray as the spirit's screams echoed through the gallery. And then, silence. The haunted gallery fell still, the atmosphere heavy with the aftermath of their battle with the supernatural. Daniel and Dr. Hartley exchanged a weary but relieved glance. The curse had been broken, and Lord Blackwood's spirit had been banished to the depths of oblivion. In the days that followed, Ravenwood resumed its normal operations, the haunted gallery now a cautionary tale whispered among staff and visitors alike. Daniel Pierce continued his duties as night watchman, forever changed by his encounter with the malevolent spirit of Lord Nathaniel Blackwood. As for Dr. Amelia Hartley, she returned to her studies with newfound respect for the dangers lurking in the shadows of history. The portrait of Lord Blackwood remained in the museum's archives, a silent reminder of the price of unchecked ambition and the enduring legacy of darkness.
Thank you for joining us on Fear Files, where the shadows whisper secrets of terror and the darkness holds its breath. Tonight, we uncovered the mysteries of ancient curses, unearthed the wrath of vengeful spirits, and confronted the malevolent spirits that haunt our darkest nightmares. Stay tuned for more spine-tingling stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Subscribe, like, and share to keep the fear alive. Until next time, may your dreams be peaceful and your reality undisturbed.